All of the online gurus tell us exactly what posting needs to look like. You've heard it before where they tell you to post 3 times a day. Post at this particular time. Use a scheduling software. Don't use a scheduling software. Be on Instagram. Make sure you don't miss out on your platform of TikTok. Be sure to post reels. Make sure you use video. All the things that overwhelm people before they even begin. I know for me, I bought into this idea because I just felt like if I followed all the systems and the strategies that I would create success. But actually what I manifested instead was burnout. I got to a point where I absolutely despised posting. It exhausted me. It frustrated me. It overwhelmed me. Can you relate to that? Well, today what I want to do is I want to share a simple process that will help you to create content in a way that feels aligned with your energy as well as feels aligned with your schedule. Creating content is so valuable because it helps you to build relationships online and connect with amazing people that you can collaborate with that may become clients down the road and the like. Creating content online helps you to increase your visibility, which in turn helps you to expand your reach as well. Creating content also helps you to attract amazing soulmate clients because they get to see what it is that you have to offer and they experience your energy, so it makes it a no-brainer to say yes to that next step. Also, creating content around your brand helps you to stay top of mind, meaning that when people need help or support with something, you're going to come up. As you can see, there are endless benefits to creating content, but when you have the mindset and the belief that you have to create content, you're going to show up in the wrong energy. And so for me, the first step that I decided to do is buy into the benefits of creating content and shifting my mindset around what it means to create content. So when I create for my online platform, for YouTube, for my podcast, for Pinterest, for all of the things, I remind myself that I get to do this. And it's a gift that I get to give the world. That mindset shift around creating content changed the energy in which I created content and also changed the type of people that I was magnetizing to me. So now I want you to consider, what are the benefits of you creating content and why is it so exciting that you get to do it? After creating that mindset shift, you're going to notice a shift in your results. The second step is to determine your content buckets. So what you want to consider is, what are about 3 to 5 topics that you will consistently talk about in your brand. So for example, with me, I talk a lot about personal development. I talk a lot about coaching. I talk a lot about book writing. I talk a lot about emotional freedom techniques as well as mindset. Because I know my content buckets, it helps me to stay forward focused on what it is that I'm going to create content around, because I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And so I could talk about pretty much anything and get really lit up. But understanding my content buckets helps me to stay focused on what it is that I'm going to deliver to my tribe. If you're not sure what your 3 to 5 content buckets are, you could first look at trends in your industry. You could also think about frequently asked questions that your audience often comes to you about. You could look at other people in your industry that you admire and see what are some of the things that they're talking about that you also have a unique approach or perspective on that you would love to share, as well as you could think about what content do you already have that gives you that extra credibility. These are all great ways to develop your content buckets, because now, after you consider these things, you know exactly what content you can create and you ensure that it actually resonates with your tribe. The third step is to consider your platforms. So here's the thing. You don't want to try to be everywhere because it's going to overwhelm you. So what I recommend is starting off with maybe 2 to 3 platforms max and creating content for those sites specifically. The best way to determine what platform is going to be useful for you is to consider what platform you're really familiar with and you feel comfortable with, as well as where you think your ideal client is. So you could test this out. Let's say, for example, you practice recording a YouTube video and you're like, oh, I'm too nervous being on camera and I'm overthinking, but I feel really comfortable sitting in my closet and recording a podcast. Then you may know podcasting is for you. Or maybe you're an avid writer and you love being able to write. And so you know that blogging is where you need to share your content. The goal is to determine 2 to 3 sites that you can really focus on. If you're wondering what's going to work for you, ask yourself a few questions. What kind of content feels easy to create, or fun to create, or most natural to create? That'll give you a telltale sign into which platforms you should be leaning into. Now for me, I started off with just Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogging. And this is where I felt most comfortable because I knew how to write. I had some familiarity with writing from writing my books. And so I felt comfortable in that area, and it didn't matter whether I was dressed or not dressed. And then I started on social media because I knew that that's where my tribe would be. And I started to lead them kind of back to my blog. And in time, I developed the confidence to be able to show up on video. And that started with small little Facebook Lives, and then it turned into a flourishing YouTube channel. And that's the really cool thing about platforms is that as you continue to develop and change, as well as your tribe continues to expand, you get to determine what's working and what's not. So let's say, for example, you're on Instagram and all you do is post static posts. That's great. But maybe you decide one day you're going to do a carousel post or a reel or a live. That's the wonderful part is you can determine where you're most comfortable and consider how you can best connect with your audience. Now, after you have shifted your mindset around all of the value that creating content brings, you have determined your buckets for the type of content you're going to create, and you've really finalized the areas where you want to create content. The next step is to repurpose your content. A question that I get quite often is how am I making so much content? But if I can be really transparent with you, I'm not creating every piece of content that you see. Instead, I may take one piece of content and turn that into 15 additional pieces of content. Let me explain. So I mentioned I started off with just 3 websites, and in time I kind of expanded. So now I do Instagram, I do Facebook, I do YouTube, I do Pinterest, I do my Anchor podcast, as well as I do blogging. So I have about 6 different platforms that I use to create content. But here's the coolest part about it all. It simply begins from one video. Let me break it down. So often when I am repurposing content, I will create a YouTube video. From that YouTube video, I will strip the audio and pull it on over to my podcast. From there, I will then strip and transcribe it and turn that into a blog and optimize it based on SEO. The blog obviously needs to be beautified to be able to break up the writing. So I create graphics on Canva, which I'm able to easily resize and later turn into about 4 to 5 different Instagram and Facebook posts. The easy part about resizing the graphics is that when I pull them over to Facebook or Instagram, because the blog is already written, I can pull little blurbs from the blog and make that the copy that goes with the picture on those social media sites. And then for Pinterest, I can also resize it and make it a static graphic that I use on Pinterest, or I can summarize the video in 2 to 3 minutes or so and make it a small pin, which I really love because videos are a great way to engage my tribe over there. So literally at the beginning of the week, I'll start to notice market trends. I'll pay attention to frequently asked questions. I'll consider ways that I can share my expertise. And then I'll pick 1 or 2 topics that I want to repurpose and create content on. And after I determine those topics, I get to dive in and repurpose and relax. And what I mean by that is I am such a huge advocate for sustainability in business. I do not believe that you have to hustle or hard work your way to success. I firmly believe that you can create the time freedom that you desire and deserve in your business if you're strategic about the way that you approach it. And this is why I've created the Repurpose and Relax workshop, which literally helps me to repurpose my content in a way that feels aligned and create more room for relaxation. And I want to teach you to do the same. So use the link in the show notes so that you can join us there. You'll thank me later. I can't wait to see you on the inside.